Hi, everyone. Welcome back to a brand new season of Tarot Talk with me, your host, Tawana Antoinette. This season or show takes on a new image with new topics. I hope you'll all enjoy it, and I hope you're all as excited as I am. Since we last connected virtually, I have evolved, as I'm sure you guys have too. So the show is evolving alongside us. This season, we'll be opening up the space for other intuitives and highly sensitive people to share their own stories and their unique experiences with us so we can hopefully build our own community to connect and learn from each other. Our first guest is an intuitive tarot reader with a very interesting background. Based in Brazil, she has transitioned from a career in architecture to a full time astrologer, tarot reader, and more recently, a yoga instructor. She has a growing YouTube channel of over 2,000 people where she channels messages for the collective using her very own tarot deck, which I will give her an opportunity to show. And if I were to describe her being and her aura, it would be light as a feather, infectious positivity, and a radiance that's immediately captivating and just very joyous to be around. I actually really, really appreciate her style of reading the tarot, which is what attracted me to her in the very first place. I think she has a very compassionate style of reading, and that just shows and exudes the compassion that she has already developed for herself. She is self taught and has studied the tarot for 6 years, and we are so lucky to have her as the first guest of the show. Welcome, Mariana.
Hi, thank you so much, Tawana. I feel so honored to be here. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
I am so happy that you're here. I have watched you in the YouTube space for a really long time, and I've just really connected with you virtually. I love the work that you do. I love the way that you do it. I love everything about the art that you put out in the world and the messages that you put out in the world. So I just want to take this time and this space to elevate you and thank you for everything that you have done for the collective and for people. And if you don't hear it often enough, you are great.
Thank you so much, truly. Yeah, it's been a journey. It's been a journey because in the beginning, I don't know if I jump in already, but it's been a long journey since 2018, since I first started wanting to study the tarot. And I feel like this is something that I always wanted, but never really allowed myself to do or to research and go deeper into it because I always felt judged and I didn't want to be judged by others, especially because at the time I was still working at an architecture office. So I had like my reputation, right? So working with this esoteric type of studies wasn't accepted, or I don't know. It was really weird. And I felt weird. But at the same time, whenever I talked about the stars and tarot and everything that I was interested about, I just had like this big, huge smile on my face. And people would comment, like, you just glow when you talk about that. But I was working with architecture, so I didn't know exactly how I was going to insert that part that I was so fascinated about and wanted to know more. So 2018 was kind of like uh, a really deep, profound year of change in my life.
I have a ton of questions, but I always love to hear you talk about your own experience and honoring that. I know that you just mentioned that you started in 2018 and how that year was for you. But could you bring us back a bit to how you started your spiritual journey? Was that in 2018? If not, when was it? And how was that for you? What did that look like?
Well, it was kind of at, yes, it was at the beginning of 2018. at New Year's from 2017 to 2018, I went on my first spiritual retreat, a yoga retreat. I've never been to one, and I went without knowing anyone. And I became really close with a few girls, and we had to howl. Is that the right way to say it? Howl to the moon, like a wolf, right? And so we called ourselves she wolves, but each one with a different personality. And so they gave me the name Loba Maga, which, translated to English would be mage she wolf or something like that. And so that was the start of my spiritual journey, in a sense, in a more proactive way, in a more awakened way, I should say. And then from then on, I was still working at the architecture firm, but I started doing my first yoga teacher training course. And then I went on this trip in mid 2018 that really changed everything, because when I came back from that trip, I decided that I had to quit architecture, um, because I needed to know who I would be if I would just search in a little deeper of what this new facet of mine as Loba Maga, as the maid she wolf, would be, who I would become. And so I was really interested in astrology. And at the same time, I wanted to know more about tarot, but I couldn't find. So this is something that maybe it's very curious for people to know about my deck, because I feel like this is something that might be very common for people who are starting with tarot. When I started, I really wanted to learn more, but I couldn't find any deck that I really resonated with. And I searched. I really searched. And here in Brazil, where I am, there aren't many places that you can find that easily. And I didn't want to order online because I really wanted to touch and see the cards and see how they would communicate with me. And so, because at the time I was working with editorial design and graphic design in architecture, um, I had the skills to create my own. So, I have them here with me.
Yeah,
So,
if you
this is
could
the
show
original
us.
one. Yeah, sorry. So this is the first one. This is the original one that it's a bit old, but this is the original tarot deck that I did because I wanted to study them. So I created this deck with, the major arcana and the minor arcana, um, in half an hour, I think. It was really fast. I think that was the first time that I channeled something without even realizing that I was channeling. And because it was ready, it's like it was ready in my mind. I only sat down on the computer one day. um, that was before the trip, I believe, that I did in mid 2018, July 2018. So at the time I was already, studying astrology and studying tarot, and I knew that I wanted to work with that like full time. So when I came back from this trip, I just quit my job. But my ex boss, he asked me to stay for a couple of months, which were devastating. Um, we talked about that a little bit before. Um, yeah, it was hard. But in 2019, just to give like a timeline, I don't know if that's okay, if we're on track with the questions. Yeah. um, so in 2019, I went on another trip, my first professional trip, um, that I went as Loba Maga, as the maid she wolf, as a brand, let's say, which I didn't know anything about at the time. I was really fresh out of an office, working like a regular job. But I knew for certain in my heart that that was something that I wanted to explore. And so I went on this trip for another editorial project, because at the time it was, what I had at hand, you know, um, the skill set that I knew that I could trust. Because at the time I wasn't that sure that I could do a reading for a client. But then when I was there with this person that I was doing this collaboration project with, which was in fact another deck, and now it blows my mind how the universe works, because before I even did this one, uh, when I was finishing my architecture degree, I created a deck without even realizing that, eventually I would be doing readings with tarot decks or whatever. But then I went for this collaboration project, and it was amazing because she gave me such like profound lessons in regards to spiritual work and how you serve without depleting yourself. Sorry. That
For
was.
those of
Can you edit that part?
for those of you who are listening to the podcast, Mariana just uncrossed her legs and her feet just came like right in front of the camera. And I probably will not edit that part out because I feel like it's very you and very authentic to this moment. You said something that I would just like to dive into a bit deeper, and that was you didn't even know that you were channeling when you made your first deck. Like, you didn't know. And the reason why I think that's such an important place to stop is a lot of the people that I've spoken to, and even when I think about my own spiritual journey, I didn't know until I just knew. It was all of a sudden almost like a light switch just came on, and I was just suddenly clear. I was just clear on where I need to go, who I am, what I need to do next, how I need to separate from a previous identity. It just kind of came on. And I think a lot of times when something just like you just instantly switch like that, it can be a jarring experience. And it has been jarring to me in certain ways because you're going through a rapid identity shift and you're like, is this really happening? Like, I'm changing. Also, my life is changing. The things that I want to do, my job, my friends. It's an all of a sudden eureka moment of looking at everything differently. And I think a lot of people may glamorize that experience, but it doesn't feel glamorous at all. It really doesn't. And I just want you to
Yeah.
talk about a bit about honestly how disorienting that can be.
Oh my God, yes. I had no idea uh, how I would make a living, to be honest, like literally. And it's not, it's like it's been like something that only recently I've gained more confidence. But at the beginning, especially 2019 and 2020, I had to trust, like fully trust that whatever was coming through, whatever I was seeing, because um, it was in the beginning of 2019 that I started offering private readings for clients here in Brazil. Um, but only people that I knew. I opened my Instagram at the beginning of that year, at the same time that I went on that trip that I mentioned for that collaboration project. But I remember that it was just recently that I realized that I was channeling to create this the deck, and that I had such a natural ability, perhaps, to receive, to just listen, because I feel like I always chose to show up no matter what. And that was something that, even for the YouTube readings, it's the same thing. Every single time that I sit down to pull cards, every single time that I sit down to do a reading for a private client, whether it's with astrology or tarot, it's the same thing. It's like I have to surrender to what I'm seeing, to what I'm receiving. And it's been the same way with the creation of the deck. I didn't question, I had no doubt. And so I feel like that was the feeling that I was interested in trying to delve into, or trying to find out what it was really because I had like a lot of curiosity. Like that was my main motivation. Like, what is this? I want to understand more. I want to learn more. It's giving me things that I'm hungry for, you know what I mean? But not like it's like this spiritual hunger. I don't know if that's a term or anything, or maybe we can just, create a new term, spiritual hunger. Um, but yeah, it's like when I created the deck, I remember that I was very certain that that was the right thing to do. And even in private, right, doing readings just for myself in the beginning because I didn't want anybody else to know that I was doing those things. Like literally, I just, I would ignore the questions and I would just like say, "Oh, no, no, no. It's nothing really." Um, but now I'm so proud and like whenever I pick up my deck, and I do have other decks that I bought, throughout the years after that. It's not the same. It's not the same. It's really bizarre because I feel like I've developed like this language with the cards, and you've seen them, but for those who are watching the video, so they are very minimal, right? They're very simple. There's not, the imagery is not that rich in the sense of the visuals, but that's something that I feel it's almost like harnessing my own imagination and my own ability to receive. Because even though the cards are very simple, I'm sure that you have had that sensation, and I'm always blown away with what
I will
comes through.
say, sorry, sorry, I'm just briefly, I will say that I love the fact that your cards are a true testament to your career in architecture because those look
Aw,
like cards that an architect would design. If you are listening, I urge you to watch the visuals for this because it's so funny. Like you could just tell so much about where she's coming from and her background by the cards that she created. I think it's a beautiful deck, I think. And it's a beautiful
thank
deck to
you.
come from somebody who has like that background. So I think they're cool.
Thank you so, so much.
Mariana has also created a deck that is based in astrology. And I always think it is a great skill to have if you are a tarot reader to learn astrology, and if you are an astrologer to learn the tarot, because to me they work hand in hand. So I'm really, really intrigued by both. And I think it would be great if you show them before we jump into the next question.
These are the two decks that I have. This is just the tarot deck, and here there are the tarot cards and the astrological oracle cards. So the story about the astrological oracle cards is that at the end of 2019, I understood that the cards wanted to talk more and to more people.
I think both of those are cool, but just a question for you. Do you use them collaboratively in readings or do you just use one at a time?
Well, yeah, I do use them as one. So typically, every new moon and every full moon, I do collective readings using this combined deck. So the tarot cards, they at first, if you go back to the first collective readings that I posted on my YouTube channel, mostly the tarot cards were talking just because I feel like it was like a slow introduction to the astrological oracle cards because they were a bit shy, and it's almost like there needed to be like this crossing between the two, right? It's like they needed to blend or to merge, or I don't know how to converse with one another. But lately the astrological oracle cards, they have been showing up more in the collective readings alongside the tarot cards. So it's like they paint a picture that is complementary, and it's like they add a depth to the tarot cards that goes beyond well, all of my readings, the meanings of the cards, even the tarot cards, go beyond just the traditional meaning. But I don't know, I feel like they just really go deeper and deeper and deeper. um for the message to come through. But perhaps it's like just because the collective is also ready to go deeper, right? To receive deeper messages. I know maybe that's just to reflect.
I really understand what you're saying. I think now when I started using tarot and just exploring cartomancy, I started with just the normal Lenormand tarot deck, and then as my practice and my study advanced, I started combining different decks and developing a connection with each of them. So this brings me to my next question. When you realize that you are able to channel, that is like a light switch moment, right? And then you discover tools, which for you, it's using the tarot. And a lot of times when we discover tools, it's like an immediate connection. I know for me, when I discovered the tarot, as I shared with you in our private and personal conversations, it felt like a coming home to myself moment. It felt like I knew how to, or I was somehow familiar with this tool, even though I don't know when I was familiar with it or when it was introduced to me. And now we can say those are past life memories, or we have used them in another lifetime and it's just coming back to us through our subconscious. But it still required work for me to develop a relationship with the cards and to gain an expansive understanding of the deck. So I came into it with like natural gifts, natural understanding, but I still needed to study and learn more. Can you tell me a bit about what that process was like when you got past your natural ability to channel with these cards and that process of study? Because I do want to shed light on the work that this involves. It's not just oh, I saw the cards and I just the messages just came. It also involves active study of what it is that you're doing. So let me know about what that study looked like over the 6 years for you.
Okay, so in the beginning, I had the cards in my hands and I would shuffle them. And even the shuffling part, I don't know if you struggled with it in the beginning, but I thought I was going to struggle with it, but it felt so natural. And I have a twin sister, so I would, lend my deck to my sister, and she would shuffle it all awkwardly. And I was like, but this is so natural. It's like I can do this. I don't know. I just knew how to handle the cards. But they weren't speaking to me necessarily. I still had to look for the meaning, for the traditional meaning. So I have an aunt, and I'm sure everybody has like some sort of like witchy connection, right? Like this witch aunt, or like some sort of person that is like this reference, right? I'm sure you have yours.
I I feel like my journey has been really interesting because coming from where I came from and in my particular family dynamic, I am kind of the black sheep of the family. I feel like
Yeah,
there's so many people in my family who have these natural abilities, but they don't acknowledge them. So I didn't really have somebody around me to kind of teach me. I had to
yeah,
resort to people online and like resources online. I really had to like search for my mentors, which is why it was important to me to make this space also because of experiences like that. And I know there's so many people out there who are going through similar journeys with their extrasensory abilities and looking for that community. And I would love to be a resource just like the resources that I found when I felt very isolated and alone. So that was my
yeah.
experience.
So I completely agree. I feel like I was lucky to have this aunt that really, she gave me so many books, and one in particular that was talking about tarot, but it was more like a workbook than anything else. So I could study it from the point of view of like an active investigation, not just reading or digesting theory, right? You know what I mean? It's like you're hands on working with the cards. and just experimenting with it. So I would do personal readings for myself, and I would just allow my intuition to bring forth what was coming through. But of course, you know, in the age of the internet, we do have a lot of resources. So my number one research tool was YouTube. So I went on YouTube and I was just diving in. Like I would literally spend so many hours of my day just watching YouTube readers, YouTube tarot readers. Um, and so that's when I found a channel that really resonated with me at the time. And the person that was, hosting that channel or doing the readings, she gave a shout out to Sen back in May 2019. So at that time, I was really fresh with all of the things that I do now as, my work. But at the time, I was still very unsure and still um, looking for reliable and trustworthy resources that that I really felt like I resonated because, and I'm sure we've talked about this, but I feel like it's important. You can just diverge yourself, and you can get distracted with so many different tarot readers, so many different options, and styles of reading, and there are those that are very shallow, that are very superficial, very mainstream, perhaps, that have many, many views and many, many, many viewers and subscribers. And I applaud those channels. I mean, they are serving, right? But they just didn't, they were fine and they worked for me in the beginning so that I could have like this overview of what is the tarot community. I had no idea, right? And just a parenthesis, like a side note here. In my personal life, at that time especially, it was not something that I was screaming around and telling my friends and saying, this is what I'm interested in. I I didn't. I still didn't market anything. It was just like all of my private clients. They were all how do you say it? Like word of mouth? Is that how you say it? Yeah, when one person recommends to the other, right? Um, so yeah, why was I saying that? Okay, going back to the resources. Sorry, I get lost. So back in May 2019, that's when I found Sen from Sen Tarot, and I immediately clicked with her. It was such like the way that she was reading the cards. It's like it was just something that I've never seen any other tarot reader do, and I really admire her genuine effort to deliver everything, to like just make her best to try to translate something that sometimes is so abstract. And I just knew that the level of resonance with her style of reading was something that really not only taught me a lot, but it gave me some sort of relief because I saw the struggles that she was trying to convey with translating the message that I sometimes, and I still do, I still struggle with trying to put into words things that are beyond words, if you know what I mean. I'm sure you do because you do read cards, also not in a traditional way. So I'm sure you know what I mean.
No, absolutely. I completely understand what you mean by trying to translate abstract messages. And sometimes there are so many messages coming through to you at one time, and it's up to you to kind of sort that, which is also why I always like to reiterate to people in general readings that if it doesn't fit, don't force it. Because the way I am translating this message, it could be for one specific group of people, and maybe there's a variation of it that applies to you, but what I am speaking about specifically right now may not be your story. So just don't force it if it doesn't fit. If it doesn't fit, this is a very general reading, so don't think that it is for you, because sometimes it's not going to be. All right.
Yeah.
So
And
jumping into,
perhaps just to add something, perhaps it's not the time for you to absorb that message. Perhaps it's going to be clearer in the future, right?
right.
Time is not linear, so the messages can play out in a different timeline than we're, well, I believe that we always find the messages at the right time that we need to hear it. But sometimes, if we are so eager and we are wanting to study and learn and understand, sometimes, that spiritual hunger can get so big that sometimes it's important for us to slow down and just digest what is here already instead of trying to, consume more and more and more and more and more. Because definitely that was something that I fell into, right? And it can be like a deep, dark hole of wanting to find the right information just to fit what I want. And that's not the way that the universe works. So we need to be, humble enough to understand that sometimes when things feel natural and easy, it just fits. And the message is there and it's going to find us. If it's not, then just let us live the best life that we can, right? Live day to day as best as we can.
Right. And if you're also not sure, book a personal reading. Like book a reading curated to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, because general readings are just that, general. I think San is infamous for readings that resonate with you in the future. So I'm really happy that you mentioned that, because I've watched so many of her readings at the moment. I'm like, yeah, this is not my story. And then in 2 months, I'm like,
Yeah.
I saw this. She said this. So I think that's also a very interesting experience to have. So my next question for you, Mariana, is oftentimes we have other gifts that we don't really share with the public. And we just keep them for ourselves. And I think that's important to have some things for yourself. I have a friend in the spiritual community, and when I decided to open up my channel in the YouTube space, we were having this conversation on protection, protecting your energy. And she asked me, what do you do for yourself? You channel so many messages for the collective, but what does your spiritual maintenance look like for you? And it was so important and impactful for me on my own personal journey, because I realized that if I don't take care of myself, I am not going to be a good vessel to be of service to anybody else. And so now I have been a lot more strict with what I do for myself and what I do for others. And there's some gifts that I don't really share, and so I can't really share them just because they're just for me. So do you have any extrasensory abilities outside of channeling via the tarot, and what does that look like?
I've come to the conclusion, especially during the pandemic, that, and I know that this might sound cheesy, but I know that my essence is love. And it's interesting because saying that word feels so out of meaning these days. And I feel like that's because we haven't really sensed or felt the true meaning of what love is. And that's exactly what I'm careful about sharing and giving whenever I have the abundance of. And I know that whenever I'm out of that, it's not that I'm out of love, it's that I need to redirect that to myself. But I've spent most of my life knowing that I was very, very sensitive. I didn't know the term highly sensitive person until 2021. But, I completely fit all of the characteristics of a highly sensitive person. So I know now that I am one, but I spent most of my life knowing that I was like that too much was like too little was already too much for me. Like a lot of stimulus from the outside environment, you know, crowded places and different energies always cramped on me that I felt very depleted, very depleted. So I am lucky to have a twin sister, and you know, I've always shared those true private sensations with her, and without even needing to say anything, I just looked at her and we understood each other. So I always felt like my true gift, in a sense, and I know again this might sound really cheesy, but my true gift is to have a twin sister and to
I
have
was
this
just
intuitive connection.
I was just gonna
Yeah.
say, are you gonna say twin telepathy?
Well, I think so. I think so. Yeah, because it's really bizarre the way that we know about what the other is going through. Um, and I feel like that was just like my normal, right? That was just my default because I didn't know, like, I don't know how it's like to be an only child like you are, right? Um, but to me, that always felt special, like a bond that I have no words for beyond just special and unique and such a gift. And I remember that, you know, I am like such a vivid dreamer. My dreams are so this is kind of like another um gift that some people know to some extent. I sometimes talk about the dreams that I have in my readings when they are, you know, coherent to the message and they make sense. But I have really profound dreams, like very vivid dreams. And there was a time that, you know, me and my sister, we had like really similar dreams, dreams that were very connected to one another and like kind of like not a vision for the other, but in a sense that right, I would see things for her and she would see things for me. Although I would remember mine like a lot more vividly than my sister, just because she chose, in a sense, a path for her that is a lot more scientific. She's a dentist, so um, she is a very spiritual person, by the way, but it's not the line of work that she chose um, to work with. Although her work is also very consciousness based. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah. Um,
Absolutely. That makes
did that
sense.
answer the question?
No, absolutely answered the question. I was about to dive deeper into the dreams. First of all, I actually 100% believe you regarding twin telepathy. I've actually done a lot of research outside of you. I even just watched a movie on that recently. I can't remember
Oh,
the name of the movie, but it was two girls who didn't speak. Um, and they didn't even
oh,
I don't think they realized that they weren't speaking because between each other they understood each other so well that when it came to the outside world, I don't think they realized that they weren't like verbalizing actual words, because within their connection with themselves as kids, they got used to nonverbal communication. So just to say all of that, I think it's extremely fascinating what twins can do in terms of their connection with each other and that telepathy. And I also really, really connect with you talking about dreams, because that's also an extrasensory ability that I have. And we have spoken about this privately, but I always think it is so jarring what your dreams can tell you, and when you really learn to interpret them, I think it opens up a world of fascination for you in your journey. And for me personally, I when I spoke to you about this privately, you said something that really stood out. You said, you know, when a dream is, I think you said,
prophetic,
prophetic, and then one that's not so serious. What did you say about those
more
dreams?
mundane.
more, yeah, more. You had a term for those dreams that I really loved, but we're gonna go with more mundane. We're gonna go
Yeah.
with more mundane. There's sometimes that I think my subconscious is just like playing with itself and it's just exploring like different things based on probably what I would have consumed during the day or what would have really impacted me during the day. And then there are those that just really stand out and is an important dream that I know. And it took time to learn the distinction between those. So I think dreams are very fascinating. And then another thing that I want to mention before moving into our next question is sometimes with dreams, you have telepathic connections with others and they're not aware of it, but you are. And it's because of the work that you've done. So we've spoken about, we're just going to call the person, a person that I have a telepathic connection with. And to this day, I connect with that person in dream space and they tell me so many life updates. And I have not spoken to this person in years, but I know a lot of personal things that are happening in their lives based on them seeking me out in dream space. So it's just really, really fascinating. And I love the fact that I can relate to you with that specific extrasensory ability. All right. So,
Can I just compliment that? It's like,
sure, go ahead.
because I feel like that's something that is really like a big sign in terms of psychic development and like awakening of sorts. Because the more that you learn to discern which kinds of dreams that you're having, or which kind of messages or visions, or even synchronicities and numbers and whatever kinds of signs that you perceive that are more um, I don't know, highlighted to your eyes, because your eyes are, well, not your two eyes, right? But your third eye, your inner vision is opening up. That's when I feel like we're elevating the frequency to a point that we can reach these higher connections in terms of going beyond the physical and reaching the astral or the ethereal. And that's a space that has no limit or time and space restriction. So that's the reason why I feel like, it doesn't really matter for how long you haven't spoken to that person, you're still connected. Or, even me and San, we've developed like such a beautiful friendship since we met, or since we started talking. Um, Actually, since I sent her my deck in the beginning of 2020. But she was the one who really gave me this incentive to start the channel. And I remember that the first few readings that I, you know, watched her readings, and then I realized that they were very in tune with the messages that I was channeling without us even talking about that previously. Like, I was blown away, and I still am to this day, because it still happens. And sometimes we have conversations about like things that are happening in my life that she dreamt about, and things that I dreamt about that are happening in her life. It's so bizarre. It's really bizarre, and it happens with you know people that are very um significant in terms of like your process of learning, your process of like just being here and developing your own psychic abilities, but here through this human perspective, right? So obviously there are restrictions, and sometimes I really get pissed because human language can be so limited in terms of the wholeness or like the bigness of the universe, that I really, oh, by the way, please send me that link for the nonverbal communication between those two girls. I was really interested in that. um because I feel like it doesn't matter if you have a twin sister or not, right? Or a sibling or not. It can happen with friends, it can happen with whomever you are in connection with, that is supposed to be in your life, and for a higher purpose. And that's way beyond any sort of specific tool.
In this work, a lot of times people tend to minimize the experience of having psychic abilities, or doing spiritual work. And I think there are a lot of misconceptions that come with this line of work. Um, I've heard so many crazy things about myself, even just because I use tarot and share that with the public. So, what are some misconceptions that you have heard, either from friends or people who just see you sharing your gifts, and how did that impact you?
Okay, so there are two things that I want to talk about in regards to your question. First of all, is in regards to the not just the misconception, but the judgment that comes with, people looking at spiritual work as work. um, because sometimes people say, okay, but what are you doing? And I'm saying, okay, I'm reading, I'm pulling cards, I'm receiving messages. Oh, yeah, but what are you doing with your day? Like, I'm doing those things, and they, require a lot of my energy, a lot of my presence, like my full presence. So it's almost like, it's not even misinterpreted. It's almost like it's judged. It's judged as something that like a hobby or something that you're not supposed to make a living out of that. Um, so that's one thing that I found, especially from people that especially from people that have known you since before you have, come out of the shadows in a sense, and you shared your gifts. But especially those people that you love the most and that you care deeply about, and, parents and, I don't know, family members that don't understand why you don't have a regular job, for instance. And then there was a phase in my life that I needed to be like uh, really closed off, to be honest. Like I really needed to, close the window or the door, or like put a shield to blind myself or to block my energy
The
from them.
projections, right?
Yeah. Well, because they were well, there are two things. First of all, in the beginning, I was not that confident, so I needed to just shut down all of the negative comments and, doubts, because I was still doubting myself if the things that I was receiving, if, if it was, what is the best word to say here? But it's like, if it was helpful in any way, right? If I should keep on doing that, because the only reason why I kept on doing was the reaction of the people. Like every single person that I read for before even opening the channel, um, they were so thankful. Like I was emotional because I was, I don't know, I was just so privileged to be able to do that and to help those people. But I really, really quickly learned about the responsibility of reading for people that are seeking kind of like a ready-made type of solution, or like a recipe for success or for, healing, or, and I always begin my reading saying, I'm just a translator. I'm not going to give you a solution. This is not supposed to make you decide anything. This is just to give you a different perspective from something that is already inside of you, right? I'm just channeling what your subconscious or your unconscious mind is trying to give to you, and it's finding, another way, another vehicle. I'm the vehicle in a sense, or maybe not even me, right? My cards or the words. So, but the other thing that I wanted to mention, just quickly remind me the question, because there was something important that I forgot.
I asked you what are some misconceptions you've heard, and I think you did a great job by introducing one that I can resonate with as well. That spiritual work is not really work. Um, because like you said, you could spend your day dedicating to either like channeling via cards or whatever it is that you're using as a tool. And personally, when I channel, when I tell you that I am depleted, like my energy levels are depleted mentally, I'm exhausted. Um, Sometimes more so than even when I would like do a physical workout. Like I need to like take a couple days off sometimes. And even in like personal readings, when I would connect with certain people drain my energy so much based on what is happening in their energetic field, which is why it takes so much undivided attention, and also why it is actually really strenuous work. So I really like that you mentioned that. But you mentioned something else that I would want to ask you to expound on further. You said that it's really difficult for the people who knew you before you kind of came out of your chrysalis moment to connect with who you are after you've discovered a newer version of you. And I connect with that deeply. And I think a lot of people in this community connect with that deeply because it's almost a very jarring experience for you, but they're experiencing a really jarring experience of your growth as well. And sometimes that can look like an encouragement for your growth, and sometimes that can look like them straight up rejecting your growth. So I understand you having to put that shield up. What was your experience like with family and friends when you did start to come out of that chrysalis and start to embrace more of like who you are as a healer? What did that look like? How did they respond to you?
Okay, so that's a great question because I feel like in the beginning I was so closed off and I didn't want to share all of my discoveries because at the end of the day, they were just discoveries. They were just experimentations. Um, I didn't have like the certainty that they would mean anything for anybody else other than myself, right? Um, but I remember being very, very closed off in the beginning, especially with my family. They knew that I had like my introspective moments, right? Where I would go to meditate and I would pull cards and I would, just energize my crystals under the moonlight. Um, but I remember that in the beginning, because I was still so unsure, I needed to be that closed off. Otherwise, it would be too overwhelming and I would not know how to cope and to keep on going because every sort of doubt coming from the outside would match, in a sense, my own inner doubt. So I needed to just keep on following my own questions without external noise influencing. So that was important. And when I was a little bit more sure, especially when I found others, when I started, my friendship with San, for instance, it was such a crucial moment for me because she understood what I was going through in such a deep way that even my twin sister, right? And that's profound. Even my twin sister, knowing me since birth, right? Since before birth, um, she understood partially about the tarot cards, about the astrology, about doing readings, about exposing myself with something in such a raw state, right? So I felt very fragile. I felt very exposed. And so that friendship to me was and still is to this day very, very important. But I know that at the same time that some people that knew me before, right? My friends from architecture school, for instance, some of them just faded away. And it's sad in a way, but also frees up space for others to come through. And now I can say that, through these years that I have been, going on this journey, especially since 2018 to today, I've created like this very tight bond with a few people that I can count in my hand. It's like in one hand that I really, really trust. And that's why I feel like I'm still very selective about the people that I allow in, because it's like they're my pillars, right? I have my own personal pillars, my own values, my own essence, things that are not negotiable, that I don't bend or, yeah, it's interesting because it's like, even coming from family comments and people that I had to distance myself, you know, through those years, I remember that I was still very fragile, feeling like my skin was very raw and needing to stand my ground. And those moments were very crucial because, well, they left a mark. I still remember them to this day because that was the moment that I felt stronger in believing and trusting what I believed, right? In truly, truly knowing that that was right for me, that all of those spiritual concepts and points of view and understanding of reality and this more subtle perception of what it is to be human here, but knowing that we're much more than just, what's here with this body. Um, and so, yeah, for me, the family relationship in terms of how they received this transition or this growth or this spiritual development, I feel like it's also been very recently that they understood that this is who I am, this is who I'm becoming, or this is who I'm discovering that I want to be. And they are now accepting because I stood my ground, because I drew that line, because I didn't allow them to, insert their questions when I still had mine. And now that I do have some sort of understandings that are no longer doubting, it's like now they're coming for me. Sometimes the closest people are the hardest to really fully come on board.
Right.
Yeah.
I really, really resonate with that. I'm going to jump into the next question that is a follow up of this. So, you have to deal with your family and your friends. But when you put yourself out there on a public platform like YouTube, you also have to deal with a large audience of strangers. And you spoke about how you protect your energy kind of with your family and your friends. But how do you protect your energy? And you kind of started telling me about this briefly before. How do you protect your energy when you are sharing it on a public platform with so many people?
I feel like I'm still figuring that out. And I feel like that's constant learning. Um, but okay, so when I opened my channel, first of all, the YouTube channel was not supposed to be for tarot readings. It was just like a personal diary that I was going to post my intimate writings, which is something also that I should mention as a gift, maybe. Maybe it's not a gift, it's just a tool that I have to process things that I feel and things that I receive intuitively and, all the questions that go through my mind. So I opened my channel with that intention to just share my thoughts freely. And because I'm in Brazil and I speak Portuguese, and I was very um, selective and restrictive about who I was going to share all of those personal thoughts, I tend to write in English most of the times. I felt like, okay, that's perfect. I'm going to open up my channel. I'm going to publish those videos in English because, most of the people that I know here in Brazil are not going to understand either way. So I'm free. I'm not going to feel that exposed because people that I know are not going to see that. Um, and at that time, I remember I was already friends with San, and I remember the first email that she sent me, and she asked me about a YouTube channel, if I had a YouTube channel doing tarot readings, since, I had my own tarot deck. And I said, of course not. I'm never going to do this. I'm never going to open a YouTube channel. I'm too shy. I cannot. Uh, so now it's funny to think about that. But in mid 2021, when the blue full moon in Aquarius happened in August 22nd, yeah, that was the day that I recorded the first tarot reading with my deck. And I remember that I was not going to post it. I was just doing it to see if I could, if it was going to come through. And it came. And then I sent to San, and I sent to her, and I posted on YouTube, with the how do you call it, the unlisted um, view setting, so it was not public. And she said, "You should post it, like even if it doesn't get any views, it's like just post it for yourself." And at the time, I had like just I don't know. I feel like I didn't even have 100 subscribers. I had like 60 or something. So that was mid 2021. And so I spent like, the next 6 months until the beginning of 2022 posting readings for free as commitment to myself, as this task that I set out to do, that I was going to just explore what wanted to come. Um, and I only continued because I remember that the feeling that I had every time that I stopped the recording was like this bliss that was just like, okay, now my mission is complete for the day. Now I can, continue on with my day. Um, so it made me feel very, very good. But then when Sen gave me a shout out on her channel, and her channel is a big channel, um, over 2,000 people came towards my channel, and it was a big blast of energy. So instantly, I felt the difference in channeling the messages. So in the beginning, it was a bit chaotic because I feel like I was used to channeling messages for a smaller collective in a sense.
Right.
Um, it was only like practice, right? It was like the trial run or the rehearsal phase. And then when more people came to my channel, it was very overwhelming. It was very, very overwhelming, and
What
I'm
did you
so
do?
thankful. So I just ran to San. I was like, San, please help me.
What advice did she give you before we jump into what's coming next? Did
Okay,
she are you
so
comfortable sharing that?
well, yeah, some of it, because I feel like it serves for anyone who wants to start reading tarot, or just trusting that you're receiving something for somebody. That even if it doesn't make sense for you, it will for somebody. So do not judge what you're receiving. That was something that she told me right away, and because I was doubting a lot of stuff, like I was really in my mind and in my head about the things that I was receiving, because it was so out of my depth and out of my reach and out of my norm. Um, so that was one thing. And I remember just feeling embraced by her and like really supported in a way that like she, uh, I don't know, I'm going to get emotional because like she's such a supportive friend that it's like it goes beyond just the tarot reading.
I want to add something here since we are talking a lot about San in this interview. I will just say that for me, the way I connected with her, like you, I feel like there are a lot of surface level readers on YouTube and I was interested in like what they had to do, what they had to say, their unique styles of reading when I was just learning and studying the tarot. But after a certain point, I just couldn't absorb surface level anymore. So I was just looking for deeper connections. And I want to take a moment to give a big shout out to San, because she's one of the first people that I just really felt seen and understood by. And it was in one reading that I happened to stumble upon on YouTube. And I think she was just talking. I don't know if it was a reading or if it was like one of her other just like vlogs or updates or something. But she said a lot of times she feels like she didn't choose to come here. She was like, we all believe that we choose like this, we chose this lifetime to come for
Yeah.
whatever reason. And she said, I actually didn't feel like I chose to come here. I felt like I was forced to come here. And in
Yeah.
so many ways, I can resonate with that in my own life. I felt that way for a really, really long time, and it has actually been a big struggle. I have really struggled with a sense of belonging, I would say, in this lifetime. And to hear her like verbalize that, I was like, okay, she is my person. Like she gets it. Like she gets me. Since then, I have kept her really close to me, even though it's just virtually and I don't know her personally. I have kept her really close and just in my heart, because I just feel incredibly seen by her in a lot of ways, and I can relate to her so much. So I just want to give a very big shout out to San for teaching a lot of people in this community, and I'm sure she knows her impact, but I just wonder if she knows how much of an impact she has really had on people. So big shout out to you, San, if you ever watch this podcast or listen to this podcast.
Aw.
Jumping jumping into the next question. Um, I would love to know, has your spiritual gifts impacted your intimate relationships? Um, for example, I know for me, I am very picky on who I share like my extrasensory gifts with, and like if I were to like meet somebody new, or if it were like an intimate relationship, I just don't immediately share this aspect of myself because I know how it can be received. Like, do you have that experience, whether you are with a person intimately or if you're not with a person? How has this experience impacted personal, intimate
Okay.
relationships?
So to start the answer for this question, I feel like years ago, I would say, oh no, that's the last thing that I'm going to ever say. Today, this is the first thing because this is who I am. I cannot hide myself from nobody. So, whoever is going to be in a relationship with me needs to know that straight away. Otherwise, it will be, I don't know, we're wasting time here? No.
Right.
So, this is something that it's not that I'm proud of, it's just who I am. I don't know how to be anything else or anybody else. And I like myself the way that I've came to be. So, and this is also something that I was going to mention when we were talking about not, remembering that perhaps you didn't choose to come here. I always felt out of place and like I didn't belong. And, just coming to this planet with my twin sister, I always tell her, like, I'm so lucky to have you. Otherwise, this life would be so unbearable, so hard. Like, I'm so lucky that I'm doing this with you by my side because I know that I can do this with you. So for me, I know that I chose to come here only because I chose to come with my twin
With
sister.
her,
Otherwise,
yeah.
I wouldn't have like this strength really. Um, but I know that now, and it's interesting because I'm in a phase of my life and my sister is in a phase of her life we've been so close together that we didn't have like personal identities separate from one another. And now it's getting to a time in our lives that we are so distinct in a way. We're so similar in so many ways in the essence, but so distinct in other ways also. And so I feel like this is something that I remember feeling, this feeling of not belonging and knowing that I was so lucky to have her. But nowadays, especially because, in 2021, actually, before I opened my channel and started posting videos, I had like a very uh, intense phase of my life. And we've talked about this privately, but I didn't want to be here live on Earth. Like being here inside this body was very, very hard. Um, and I remember that I was feeling like this void inside of me. So it's interesting because nowadays I feel like being here is such a present, like it's a gift to be here, that I know that I chose to see all sides of this diamond, or to explore all facets of this diamond, or you know um, try to see life from so many different angles that I can find beauty in every single angle, including tarot, including astrology, including personal relationships, including family, including hardship, including challenges. And so I feel like intimate relationships nowadays are something that I value very, very deeply. I honor them whenever I have like somebody come into my life. For instance, it's not very long that we met each other. Um, and I feel like I'm very picky as well. I still am. I'm not as closed off as I was. It's almost like I'm a little bit more permeable to get to know people, but I'm still very selective to who like I allow in a more intimate level. And especially like romantic relationships, I straight away tell them like this is who I am.
I love that. I absolutely love that. All right. So, my next question for you, we are going to be asking a more fun question
Okay.
as we close out. So, I want to know from you, what is your favorite tarot card and why?
I've had so many favorite tarot cards. In the beginning, it was the Chariot, just because it's connected to Cancer, which is my sun sign. Um, but I am really intrigued by the Wheel of Fortune because it switches in meaning for myself. Sometimes it comes as years, sometimes it comes as, portals between time and space. Sometimes it comes as karma. Sometimes it comes as like this alarm setting off. And it depends on the context. But lately, I should say that the most intriguing and just the one that is, well, okay, so I should mention another one that was very prominent in my life lately, the Death Guard. So that card came up like in various personal readings that I was doing for myself. Not lately, but in the end of the 2020. Yeah, that year, like the Death Guard came so much for me. And I was, going through many, many different transformations, not just individually, I'm sure, but collectively. But nowadays, the card that is speaking to me the most is the star. And I should say, not just the star in the tarot card, but two specific cards that maybe I should try to find here, but it will take too long. But there are two cards that came up in the my latest collective reading for the full moon in Sagittarius, one being the Orion's belt and the other being the Pleiades. So these are two constellations. So I would say like the star being this symbol of star beings or star communication or star family, star seeds, however you um, feel like it resonates. To me, it's like the concept of something outside of our realm, our 3D reality. So, yeah, maybe that's what is yours. I'm curious to know what yours.
I love that you said that your favorite card changes, because that's kind of what happens to me. I think a lot of the times what I use to evaluate readers that I trust is how biased they are when certain cards come out. Because if I'm being honest, I have held the energetic signature of every single tarot card in the deck. There are readings that I've done that have taken me through all of the cards, good, bad, in between, all of the cards. I've held them. And I now know how to hold space for people in whatever energy they're in, because I have held those energies and I know what compassion for myself feels like. So I can easily now extend that to other people. It's just an energy. You can transmute an energy. You are not like a terrible person because you pulled a particular card. So I say that to say, a lot of times I have observed readers' interpretation of the devil card, and I feel like it is so misconstrued. And there are very few readers that I have seen that are able to read that Capricorn energy of the devil card. So it has become my favorite card recently, because I feel like it can means so many things depending on the readings that it comes out in and the cards that are surrounded by it. I mean, it could mean so many variations of things. It could be addictions, it could be a toxic bond, it could be an unhealthy connection, it could be literally a vice, it could be so many different things. So I think I really, really, really like the devil card right now, just because I feel like it gets a really bad rep, and that's just because people don't really understand a lot of times how to really view that energy. And I just wish more people would learn more about that energy so they could speak to it um, in a more informed and helpful way for others. And this may be because I have lots of Capricorn placements in my own chart. So maybe that too. But I really, really like the devil card right now.
That's interesting that you said because so I went to look for the devil card in my own deck, and here are the horns for the my inspiration for this card was that movie with what is the name?
I know what
Yeah,
you're
that
talking
name.
about.
Uh,
With Angelina
yeah.
Jolie.
Yes, yes, exactly. So what is
Maleficent.
okay? Maleficent, Maleficent. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's the one. Okay. But the thing about this card is that recently it's talking about a path that has been broken. So you see here how it's connected just by a thread. It was supposed to continue, but it got broken or it got, I don't know, shredded or separated somehow. So I feel like that's something that it's not just the devil or the death or, the 10 of swords or the 9 of wands or the cards that traditionally hold that um, weight, right? That weight within them. I always choose to see the positive side. And it's not just because I'm like, super positive all the time. I get sad, I get angry. But I feel like if we choose to look at things with a more optimistic point of view, we get to find beauty in every single place, no matter where you are, no matter what situation you're in, right? And that's how I do the readings. That's how I feel like that's the lens that I choose to wear whenever I'm channeling, if there is such a thing.
Mariana, I have only two more questions for you before we wrap up. And the second to last question that I have is, if you were to have an ideal person that you'd like to hear on this podcast next talk about their unique experience in this spiritual world, who would that be?
Oh my god, it has to be Sen. I have no doubt. It has to be Sen. I'll try to convince her to come here.
San, I would love to have San on this podcast. I think that would be amazing. So we'll see if we could make that happen. All right.
Hopefully.
And
Yeah.
last question that I have for you. I just want to open up this space to ask you for any closing advice that you have for anyone just starting out on their spiritual journey. What can you share from your own experience to kind of uplift them and to give them hope on whatever experiences they have signed up for during that very personal journey?
Sorry. Um, well, first of all, you're not alone. It's so much more common than we think, um, to feel so lonely because it is a personal and individual and very unique journey. Like each and every one of us are going to go through specific things to absorb the things that are necessary. I always see that as like getting the right tools to put into a toolbox that is going to serve us in a specific moment. Um, and most of the things are not going to be pleasant at first, especially when we're just beginning, when we're just starting to see things in a different way. So, knowing that you're not alone, and when I say you're not alone, it's not that necessarily you're going to have somebody, like I had my twin sister, but, imagine there were things that I just didn't know how to share with her, and thank God I didn't have to use words because I just didn't know how to. But she embraced me. And some people are not going to have a twin sister or a sibling or a parent or a friend, but just know that you're not alone because at some point, those people who are searching for the same things and seeking for the same sort of development, they are going to find you and you're going to find them. It's like there is such a beautiful thing about, the people that you cross paths with along the way in the way to, find yourself really. Sometimes we doubt so much in the beginning that we don't really know what we're doing. And that's something also that San gave me as a crucial advice. She said, it's okay not to know what you're doing. And, most of the times we don't know what we're doing. We just have to trust that it is for our best interest, it is for the growth of our being. And we are going to benefit from that trusting in the beginning when everything was collapsing and, just trying to push us away or trying to make us give up.
I think that is a perfect way to end the show. I would not have said that better myself. I think you touched on some of the most difficult parts of starting a spiritual journey, and those are definitely things that I would also encourage people to remember. All right. So, Mariana, thank you so much for talking to us today. Again, I have loved every moment of knowledge that you've shared. Yeah, I just really, really appreciate you and your entire existence and just you as an individual. So, thank you for coming on the show. At this point, I am going to open it up to you to tell the people where they can find you and also any services that you offer. Just briefly tell us where you'd like people to connect with you and what services you're offering right now.
Thank you so, so much, Tawana. It's so nice to know you better, just to be in contact with you. Thank you so much for this invite. It's like I feel truly, truly honored to be the first guest here in your podcast. And so, right now, this, let's say, English speaking focus of my work is mainly on YouTube. So you can find my YouTube channel at MN, M for Mariana, N for Netto, which is my surname, and Tarot, MN Tarot. Um, and basically, that's where I am doing all of my tarot readings. Although, right now, I am exploring a lot more of this yoga journey that we haven't even talked about, but it's something that is really just present in my life. So, right now, I am a little bit split in between, my Portuguese speaking work and then my English speaking work. So, the tarot part is on my YouTube channel. You can get the extendeds on video, with the link on the videos. But I'm not doing right now private readings with tarot. I've done that in the beginning of 2022. It was a lot of work. It was very overwhelming. So I decided to just stop that for a period of time. Perhaps I'm going to bring them back. I don't know yet, because the work that I'm doing here in Brazil with private clients here with astrology and tarot and yoga is consuming a lot of my time and energy. So, yeah, right now, I feel like the most reliable place that people can find my work with tarot is my YouTube channel.
All right. Thank you so much. So, guys, if you want to connect with Mariana, follow her YouTube channel at MN Tarot. And as usual, you guys know where to find me. This will be available via podcast on all of the podcasting platforms. All you have to do is search Tarot Talk with Tawana Antoinette. It will pop up wherever you stream your podcasts. And the video versions of this experience will be on my YouTube channel at Tawana Antoinette. That is also where I post collective readings for all 12 zodiac signs. So if you would like to connect with this podcast in a visual format, as well as all my other tarot content, you guys can find me there on YouTube. So we are going to close here. And for the last time, Mariana, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time spent with me today. And yeah, I wish everybody a amazing rest of your day wherever you are, whatever time it is, wherever you are. So, all right, we're going to close.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone. Bye.
Bye.